Okay, we are reading Aghori, the left hand of God. We are on chapter 6, page number 171 of the book and 88 of the PDF.
Restrictions. If you want to die while you're still alive, you have to restrict the three things which most bind us down to the body: food, sleep, and sex. The Nats, a tribe of immortal Agoris, have a prescription for spiritual advancement. Break up your sleep and cut down your food. No matter how far your mind may soar into the astral regions while you're awake, once you go to sleep, you erase all the benefit. Sleep is very much like death, just less permanent. It is the overcoming of the mind by a blanket of dullness.
So, so the three things that we need to survive, okay, our body heals and repairs itself while we are sleeping. So sleep is actually a very, very important part of normal well-being. Sex is procreation. This is something that we are all built into, right? We need to procreate because that is a survival instinct which is built into us, whether we like it or not. We procreation is a very, very important part of the entire again survival instinct. And food also, we need to nurture our body. Because of that, again the survival instinct kicks in. Now, when we go into sleep, and especially when we go into delta sleep, whatever we have experienced during the day goes down from the conscious mind into the subconscious mind, and it is stored in the subconscious mind. Now, you have to go into an altered state of my consciousness to be able to act in a waking state, be able to access your subconscious mind. So that's why he says over here that sleep is very much like death, just less permanent, because you're not consciously aware when you're going to sleep. The mind gets overcoming the mind by a blanket of dullness. What does this mean? That means the conscious mind shuts down and the subconscious mind takes over. So when you're sleeping, you have no conscious awareness of what you are consciously doing because you actually go out of the body. Now, Robert Monroe talks in his books of actually attending schools when we are in that altered state of a delta sleep, right? All of us go out of our body, but we are not consciously aware of it. So in from the perspective of an agori, it means that if you're not aware of something, that means you're not aware of it. It is as simple as that. Also, many times when you're breaking your sleep, you automatically go into the hypnogonic and the hypnoponic state where you are feeling asleep but you're not yet asleep, so you're in that middle stage. That also can take you into altered states of consciousness and access your subconscious mind. So that's why he's saying break your sleep. And if you cut down your food, again we have breatharians, right? If you're eating food, it takes energy to digest your food also. There is some activity going on in the system. So the focus of attention is not fully on the growth prospects, right? It's also in digestion of food. So most agoris will eat very little. They will cut down their food. And actually we don't need as much as we really eat.
Food makes you sleepy by filling you up. Sex exhausts you. It makes you sleepy by draining you. Agoris cannot afford the luxury of relaxation. They have to be sharp at all times. They work all night long in the smashan, where drowsiness makes them much more susceptible to attack from spirits.
So again, if you're not totally consciously aware of what you're doing when you're doing the rituals that the Agori performs, then naturally you can go off in a tangent, right? Now, when you go off in a tangent, then naturally other entities who are there can make use of you, right? So you have to be very, very well prepared when you're doing the Agori ritual.
Food and sex also make both of you more conscious of your bodily processes. In fact, in the case of all three food, sleep, and sex the more you get of them, the more you want. Other desires can be eliminated by gratifying them, but these three desires have to be carefully regulated. If you eat an entire chicken today, does that mean you won't be hungry tomorrow? No, you'll be hungrier. If you sleep 9 hours today, you're likely to sleep 10 hours tomorrow. And it is the same way with sex. The more you get of it, the more you want of it. Until you begin to at least curb these desires, you will never make any permanent spiritual progress. Write it down. It is impossible. All your gains will be continuously wiped out by your indulgences. And worse, if you ever permit yourself to be tempted in the smashan, you've had it.
So again, food, sleep, and sex can never be gratified. Totally taken. I mean, gratification by more indulgence is a very difficult. Uh, uh, I mean, it's difficult to achieve. However, sex is definitely used by agoris where they do not have the orgasm. They internalize the orgasm, and that becomes a beneficial process. But they're not indulging in sex per se, in the gratification of the normal sexual connotation. They work on it at a different and a higher spiritual level.
Consider this indulgence. Sadhus and other spiritual aspirants are forbidden to drink alcohol. Some are not even allowed to take medicine which contains alcohol. Agoris, however, drink, but only because they can master the intoxication. You must drink the drink. You must not let the drink drink you, lest you become its slave and be lost. You must always retain your control.
So again, when you have achieved a certain level of sadhana, then the liquor cannot affect you, or any kind of intoxicant cannot affect you. So you become the master of the intoxicant. Most of the time, what happens when normal people are indulging in intoxication or in drugs, the drug or the alcohol takes charge of them. They are not in charge of the alcohol. But agoris can do it. They can drink up to 4 bottles of whiskey and nothing's going to happen to
What is the use of drinking and becoming drunk? You slobber all over yourself while you run off at the mouth to whoever will listen, buying them drinks if necessary so they'll listen. Then you gorge yourself on a big meal and probably vomit it back up. Eventually, you get into a fight, make a pass at somebody else's wife, or pass out.
them. So basically, when you indulge in alcohol, you become incoherent. You do not know what you are doing, right? So the alcohol has taken charge of you rather than you taking charge of the alcohol.
Alcohol makes you extroverted, but this extroversion must be firmly controlled. Most people permit the drink to drink them. They allow their conscious minds to be overcome by all the little yeast cells crushed after the fermentation process is completed. Yeast cells undergo such agony during the crushing operations that a great current of tamas is created by their unvoiced screams in the resultant alcohol.
So, as mentioned before, everything has conscious awareness, right? So, anything that is harmed during the production of anything else will carry the trauma that is generated in that process for the thing that is being harmed. And if you consume it, then you are even consuming that trauma, which is tamas. Any kind of trauma results in tamas.
When I want to drink, I always allow a drop of the drink to fall on the ground before I begin. As an offering to Mother Earth, I am asking her to redeem all the wretched little yeast cells. When she does, each cell becomes filled with the transcendental wisdom and blessing of the Mother, and by my consuming them, I do too. When I offer that drop, I repeat a certain mantra and then say Prajvalita. because both the yeast cells and I should have our intellects become prajvalit, enkindled. By doing this, the alcohol enkindles my bhut agni and enables me to soar into the astral regions. Anyone else who drinks will enkindle his jatar agni, which will increase his appetite and drag him further and further down into the physical consciousness. Jatar agni is the fire which digests our food. It is the body's power of digestion. Bhut Agni is associated with the subtle body. It enkindles and inflames Jatar Agni. When the mind is disturbed, the Bhut Agni is weakened, which weakens the Jatar Agni. This results in indigestion, which causes disease.
So I've used this technique quite a number of times when people want to quit alcohol, they want to quit smoking. We tell them that give one to the earth before you consume it yourself. Of course, over here, he's even using a mantra which is transmuting or transforming the alcohol which is being given to the Mother Earth, right? But even this, like if you're having a peg, you first give one peg to the earth and then you have a peg. It'll reduce your consumption of the alcohol or even cigarettes. I've tried it and it has worked with certain people.
The Bhut Agni acts as the digestive fire for the subtle body, except that the subtle body does not live on food. Its food is jap, recitation of mantras. If you want to become spiritual, you must preserve and protect the power of Bhut Agni so your spiritual practices will be properly digested by your mind. So many Western seekers have ruined themselves physically or mentally by overdoing mantras or pranayam or whatever before they were strong enough to digest, to properly make use of the energy they were creating. Because the Bhut Agni gives energy to the Jatar Agni. Which one is strong, the other must necessarily be weak. When one is strong, the other must necessarily be weak.
So again, any kind of practice needs preparation. If you're not prepared for it, that's why the step-by-step process was made, right? Now the guru used to see, in the olden days, the guru used to see what is the level of progress of a particular person, and then accordingly give the student, I mean person, I mean student, the required lesson. And then they used to monitor whether that person has achieved that lesson and then give the next lesson. Now, if you're not prepared and you start doing a certain process, then you're going to hurt yourself. Basically, this is what it is saying, being said away. That's why in the Monroe process, you're always taken step by step. First, you're given the preparatory process, then you're taken to focus 10. And then again, before you go to focus 12, again you go to focus 10, and then you go to focus 12. So even in the advanced programs, you're always connecting with the lower tires, right? So you're always climbing the steps one at a time, and then you are achieving the higher state of consciousness. That makes it more powerful, that makes it more stable, rather than just going into that state and then getting knocked out.
If you want to enjoy mundane life to its fullest, you will need a strong, well nourished body, for which you must keep your Jatar Agni well inflamed. And the best way to increase the power of your Bhut Agni, your spiritual digestion, is to exactly the opposite. Eat less. As your physical hunger decreases, you will find an increased mental hunger for knowledge. And as you find you can only digest smaller quantities of food, you will find that you can digest many more new things mentally and vice versa. Sleep and sex will generally dull both Jataragni and Bhutagni. Though no, there is no escape. To make your permanent spiritual progress, you must make your Bhutagni predominant.
So if you're eating more, then energy is utilized in digesting the food, so your attention span gets curtailed. Okay. So generally speaking, anyone on a spiritual path, you will find that their consumption of food starts to drop.
Intoxicants. In an ordinary person, the consumption of alcohol will lead to an enkindling of the Jatar Agni. Ayurveda recognizes this and prescribes medicinal wines when there is a need to increase the appetite and promote digestion. An Agori, though, is not an ordinary person. Agoris do not live to eat. An Agori who drinks must drink not to lose his consciousness and become more enmeshed in the world's Maya, but rather to dilate certain brain cells to increase, not decrease the awareness. Alcohol should sharpen your mind so much that a problem which might take hours to think out in the normal state can be done instantaneously. It's the same with every other type of intoxication, also. If you can't control it, don't do it. You're sure to scuttle yourself.
So this is reminiscent of the LSD experiments which were carried out. Ultimately, LSD was banned because it sharpened people's minds so much that whatever capability you had, it enhanced it, right? So if an engineer was there, it enhanced the engineering capability of that person. A writer would get enhanced ability to write. An artist would really start painting very beautifully. They did a lot of work with LSD, and then ultimately the American government got scared of the kind of capability that the people developed while taking LSD, and that became a problem. Even in Fringe, Walter talks about Bell and himself taking a mix of various chemicals as well as LSD a lot. And the kind of inventions they came up with were fantastic, right? So again, LSD intoxicants can actually sharpen your focus also, but you have to know how to control them.
So can't this be limited and allowed rather than totally banned? Can this be used more productively?
Yeah, but then you have to first develop the ability to really control it and use it, right?
Yeah.
How many people actually do the sadhana to be able to really control it in the way
Mm-hmm.
that it needs to be controlled?
Mm-hmm.
Most people are having a drink
Mm-hmm.
and they're feeling the lull, right? So
Yeah.
what are they feeling? Basically, what happens when you're drinking is that the intoxicant goes to your brains and it starts killing some of your brain cells.
True.
And in that killing, you start feeling the lullness. You understand? But over here, he's talking about a totally different process where it builds brain cells instead of cutting them down. So something
Yeah.
like LSD used to sharpen your brain. It never used to dull you down. So most people do not have that ability to transmute the normal alcohol, your whiskey and vodka and all that, to actually enhance your ability to perceive.
Mm-hmm.
It works to a certain extent. Then it's a very thin line. Na? If you cross
Yeah.
that threshold, you're gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
When an Aghori takes a lot of intoxicants, he feels like going to the smashan and being alone with his thoughts. He becomes more introverted. He feels like telling everyone he meets, "Leave me alone." And if he covers himself with ashes and remains naked and shouts obscenities, no one is likely to come near, and he can be in his mood all day long. This is one of the reasons why Aghoris act the way they do. I used to do it myself.
So again, the Agoris, when they are going into these altered states, they don't want anyone to come near them. And that's one of the reasons why they used to be the way they are, naked around, putting ash and putting all sorts of stuff on their bodies. So no one used to disturb them and people started fearing them.
Aghoris are thrill seekers. That's it in a nutshell. When I went to the USA in 1981, what was the thing I most enjoyed? The roller coasters, especially Space Mountain at Disney World and the old wooden roller coaster at Circus World. I could stay on a roller coaster all day. That rush of speed, that excitement, most people just scream and forget it, just as most people who drink get drunk and pass out, and most people who indulge in sex have an orgasm and go to sleep. But what is the use in that?
Okay,
That
so
is mere
one
bodily
second.
indulgence.
One second. So, this roller coaster in Circus World, we had gone to Circus World in 1983. And when we went there, it was totally empty. And I think we must have gone 20 times of that one roller coaster. It's an amazing roller coaster. Of course, now they've made much bigger ones and more, twisty, turning ones. But at that time, it was one of the largest roller coasters in America.
To be an Agori, you must go beyond all limitations, and the biggest limitation is the limitation of the body. When we Agoris use thrills, intoxicants, and sex, we use them to go beyond the body. It is the same way with music. Maybe if I use music as an example, you'll understand what I mean about intoxicants and sex. Music is vibration, just like mantra. You can use it to benefit your sadhana. Any music will work. If it has a nice melody and a good rhythm, I love Jim Reeves because he has both melody and a good rhythm and also pathos. I enjoy Spanish and Caribbean tunes, and I will even listen to some rock music, though much of it is too violent for my purposes. Some of our bigoted Indians say only Indian music can make your mind more meditative, but that is all bull. It is true that our Indian rhythms are far more advanced in complexity than are the Western ones, and our tunes are much more intricate. But there is something about Western music which makes it particularly useful for getting into certain frames of mind.
So, all music has the potential to shift our states. And that is what we are doing, using frequencies in hemisync or in the Monroe processes to be able to go into altered states of consciousness. Now, of course, they're mixing music at the Institute, which can even take us into gamma, which is very, very profound and powerful and shifts you very, very profoundly. We experience this in conscious presence as well as exploring consciousness. One more program is there. Event horizon. In event horizon and conscious presence, SAM signals are used, which can actually take you into gamma states of consciousness. So, Western music has its benefit. Every music will have its own propensity. You need to figure out what will work for you, and when you feel that this works for me, then you start using it. So there are over 300 hemisync tracks which are there, and some work for some people and some don't work for others. Okay, and we have tried this when we were working in the dyslexic center. I used to actually test which track will work for which child in that given week. So we used to prescribe that particular CD for that particular child with different kinds of music were there in the music, and of course hemisync was also under the layered under the music.
Meat is also an intoxicant, by the way. It is just as intoxicating as music, alcohol, marijuana, or sex. But it involves killing a sentient being, which I don't like. I'm fond of animals. Besides, when you eat meat, you must be in a position to ensure that the animal gets a higher rebirth if you don't want to be stained by karma. So it is better to avoid it.
So
There are three.
so what happens when you're killing the animal? The animal goes through trauma, right? As soon as anyone goes through trauma, the chemicals which are secreted in the body are in the body of the meat also. Now, when you consume that, that is very tamasic in nature. So it will automatically draw your body down more to the physical aspect of things, which is more like sleep and eating and indulging in more sex. So it generates a lot of heat. Okay, so that's why when you're going into a sattvic kind of a diet or you want to go into spirituality, avoiding meat is a better option.
There are three important reasons why Agoris love to take intoxicants. First, it is a question of challenge and response. It is a contest between the Agori and the drug. Who is stronger? Will the drug be able to overcome the Agori's will and drown his consciousness, or will the Agori be able to control the drug's effect and bend it to his will? The exhilaration of such a duel is a sublime intoxication in itself. Second, if the Agori is able to master the intoxication, the force of the intoxicant magnifies the force of his concentration, since the mind is a chemical phenomenon. As the concentration is strengthened, the image of the deity which is being continually formed in the subtle body is made firmer and clearer, and this brings success at worship all the closer.
So anything that needs to manifest in the physical world first has to manifest in the subtle world, right? So now, when the Agori is going into an altered state, and in that altered state, he envisions the deity's figure very, very powerfully. He hastens the process of the deity manifesting in the physical world.
Third, Agoris always worship Shiva, who loves intoxicants. This has a dual purpose effect. Not only does the Agori please Shiva by offering him the intoxicant, but the very act of taking the intoxicant helps the Agori self identify with Shiva, since permanent intoxication is one facet of Shiva's personality. Shiva is intoxicated with samadhi consciousness. We have to work up to his level gradually.
So, Samadhi consciousness again is an altered state of consciousness. By taking intoxicants, we are also going into an altered state. But then that 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 the pinnacle of that samadhi state is not achieved so easily by intoxicants. But as you do it, and as you can control it, it helps you to achieve that deeper state of samadhi, which Shivji is supposed to be in all the time.
Most people never realize that the purpose of intoxication is to sharpen the mind. They take marijuana, then eat heavily, then enjoy sex. They will enjoy penetration for 1 minute and think that they are copulating for years because of the drug's distortion of the sense of time. It's all such a waste.
So again, when we are going into altered states of consciousness, what happens is that the sense of time starts to get distorted. This is something we find in the excursion workshops also, where one person in the exercise will think it was about 2 hours, and the other person will say it was only 5 minutes. So a distortion of time takes place. This is one of the main requirements of when you're going into an altered state of consciousness. You do not deal with time in the way that you normally deal with it.
Agoris take all sorts of intoxicants, some much worse than these. It is a part of the sadhana. I used to keep a cobra and let him bite me on the tongue every hour just for that particular thrill. To feed him, I had to put a small hole in an egg and then forcibly pour the contents down his throat. The idea that cobras drink milk is ridiculous. I had several cobras, including one albino who had 3 lines on his hood, the symbol of Shiva. I kept a king cobra also. Its poison is much deadlier than that of other cobras because its diet is nothing but other cobras. I used to keep white arsenic also and lick one of the crystals every hour or two. For my marijuana and hashish, I had a special pipe made from a particular type of clay into which I had mixed arsenic, aconite, datura seeds, opium, and what not. It was a chillum about a foot long, beautiful. I used to drink 24 hours a day sometimes and go through cases and cases of scotch. I drank it neat, straight from the bottle. But after a while, I began to think, what is the use? I have stopped most of my intoxicants, though, sorry, though I sometimes still drink alcohol or use bhang.
So there are many kinds of intoxicants. Okay. Some people also lick frogs, which emit a certain kind of a poison, which when you lick it, it again sends you in an altered state. Over here, you are seeing that he wanted the cobra to bite him on his tongue. That can also take you into an altered state. Some people also do mushrooms, right? We had a talk on ayahuasca where wines are brewed in a certain way, which also generate DMT and take you into an altered state. So there are various ways in using different kinds of intoxicants to take you to these altered states.
One of the big disadvantages of intoxicants is their side effects. Smoke chillum after chillum of marijuana or hashish, and you are bound to develop a terrible cough and probably chronic bronchitis. Drink bottle after bottle of whiskey, and your liver must suffer. Drink bhang and become chronically constipated. And long term use of arsenic or mercury? Don't even ask about that. But all these substances have their own special advantages, which is why Agoris put up with all the disadvantages.
So always there is a flip side to everything. So if something is giving you something good, then it is taking away something from you. You need to take a informed decision as to what is working for you and what is not.
Most people think tobacco has nothing but disadvantages. They are so wrong. Tobacco is really a marvelous plant. Nowadays, it is being misused by everyone because very few know how to use it properly, and that is why there are so many side effects. Poor tobacco is blamed instead of the stupidity of the user. If it is properly employed, it can work wonders. It has 100 important uses in Ayurveda. Do you think that the American Indians were fools to worship it? Never. They knew what it could do.
So so tobacco is used in various ceremonies in the Native American culture. They also said that the tobacco plant had a spirit, right? Every plant has a spirit in any case. But the tobacco plant had many healing capabilities also. So there are many healing modalities which are used where a shaman, he actually smokes the tobacco and then blows the smoke into the body of the patient, and it can really cause some tremendous amount of healing effects. Robert, the gentleman who came and spoke to us about ayahuasca, he also uses tobacco to heal people, and I've experienced it, and it causes a shift. But again, it's you have to do it a lot. I mean, you have to do it as use it as a healing modality. It's not a quick fix that you do it once and it's over.
But there are even better intoxicants. The rishis used to take soma, which is a type of leafless creeper. Some people today think soma was the poisonous mushroom Amanith muscaria, but that was also merely a substitute for the real thing. Only the rishis know what the true soma is, because only they can see it. It is invisible to everyone else. Before taking the plant, the rishis would first worship it on an auspicious day and take its permission. If the plant refused its permission, it was left alone. If it said yes, if it was willing, then they would make sure the plant would take birth as an animal after its demise. Then they would gather it with the appropriate mantras.
So this is exactly what we were doing in this program that I just attended online on shamanism, uh, taken by the Foundation of Shamanic Studies. They said exactly the same thing, where you go into an altered state and you go and connect with a plant, and then you ask the plant the permission, can I sit with you? number one. And then if you want to take a part of that plant, you actually take permission from the plant to take that part of the plant. In Ayurveda, this was something which was done on a regular basis. If they wanted to take a certain part of the plant to make a medicine, they used to actually go and tell the plant that I'm going to come at this time on this day and take this part of you to make this medicine, right? So there was communication going on. The plants have consciousness. So communication is there. Now, what he says over here is plant taking birth at a higher level. So consciousness is ever evolving, right? You don't devolve. So the lowest level of consciousness is at the mineral level. The minerals will combine into into elements, the atomic level, then the mineral level. The minerals will combine to make plants. The plants will combine to make insects, and so on and so forth till we come to the human chain. So consciousness is ever evolving. So it says over here very quickly, clearly, then would make sure the plant would take birth as an animal after its demise, right? And then once they had ensured the pathway for that consciousness to achieve growth, then they used to gather up the parts that they needed to make the particular medicine or to make the particular intoxicant.
If you want to use an intoxicating plant and can't collect it yourself with mantras, you have to add a mantra afterwards if you want it to have the proper effect on you, and if you want to avoid the karma involved. Taking an intoxicant without such appropriate mantra is certain to ruin your bhuta agni and your mind.
So again, the mantra prepares the intoxicant for you to be able to ingest it to give the result that you are looking for. So it's a partnership. Whenever we are dealing with plant medicine, it's always a partnership. It is not something that you do very lightly.
Sometimes some of my children have started using alcohol or marijuana thinking they could imitate me, but they have all landed in trouble because without knowing the method, you just can't fool around with these things. Even those of my children who I allow the occasional use of intoxicants have gone beyond their limits sometimes, and I have had to be strict with them.
So again, you cannot copy your guru, right? You have to follow the instructions of the guru, because what the guru has gone through, what the guru has been able to digest, to ingest, to be able to transmute, that ability you don't have. So many times a student will go into competition with his guru, which can land them up in big trouble.
One boy I am very fond of started thinking he was a great Agori because I would permit him to take intoxicants with me. I decided he would be taught a lesson for his own good to prevent him from going overboard before he was able to gain complete control. Someone had given me some charas, and this boy was anxious to try it out. You know, charas is not the same thing as hashish. Hashish is the pollen and resin of the cannabis plant. Charas is prepared by taking the fresh fleece from a slaughtered sheep, stuffing it full of this resin, and burying it in the ground for a month. The fat from the sheep and the lanolin from the fleece mix with the resin and liquefy it, and the liquid drips into a little pot. After a month, the pot is removed, and there you have charas. I prepared this charas for the boy personally, mixing it with tobacco and rubbing it with my hand in a little water. And I warned him, don't inhale too hard. This sort of charas gets a firm grip on your head very easily. I know you've taken plenty of intoxicants in your life, but this one is different. Beware. But he ignored my advice as I knew he would, and he and I started puffing away. Within 5 minutes, only 5, he realized he had taken too much, but it was too late. he began to lose all his body consciousness. His prana, vital force, collected in his throat, which prevented him from wagging his tongue. He was game for it, though I must admit. He started to try to make the prana go up the Ajna chakra, the energy center between the eyebrows, and then out through the Sahasrara, the energy center at the crown of the head, gone for good. Had he succeeded, he would have gone into Nirvikalp Samadhi, a state in which he would have been permanently unable to self identify with his body.
So this student of his knew. So he attempted to channel the energy through the system, but his system was not fully prepared for it, right? So it could have caused sort of problems for him where he went into a samadhi state and would have been unable to come back. So doing these sadhanas, unless you're prepared and you have a community or a guru who's guiding the process, it becomes difficult to do these things.
But I could not permit that to happen. After all, he still has plenty of Rin Anubandhans to clear off yet. And if I prevent him from doing that, I become responsible for clearing them off myself. No, thank you. So I told someone to give him some water. Drinking that glass of water kept his prana right there in his throat, unable to go up any further. Of course, the charas was still pushing from below. Now he was in the Trishanku state, unable either to go up or to come down. He was neither in the world nor out of it. He lay suspended between the world, the lower five chakras, and the true Shunya, state of spiritual vacuum of the Ajna chakra, so that he would not forget his lessons. I permitted him to remain like that for several hours, while I went to the stables to see my race horses. When I got back, there he was, still hovering somewhere in between. When he was finally able to talk again, I asked him what he had experienced. He told me, I felt as if I was on the threshold of forgetting everything, as if just a little further and it would have been only thee and me, and from there onward, only thee or maybe only me.
So, so grounding is extremely important. Okay, that's why we tell people in the excursion also that keep drinking water before and after the exercise because it allows you to remain grounded. And what he was saying, I got back, I was still hovering somewhere between here and there. So this is like focus 22, right? Where a person is really not aware of what is happening and is suspended between body and that expanded state. But he does not know where to go, right? So it's a coma state. People who get intoxicated go into that state of consciousness.
Wait, wait, I told him, laughing. There is still time. Don't be in a hurry. To go up fast is fine, but to come down too fast is fatal. And since that day, he has always taken his intoxicants according to his capacity without permitting them to overcome his conscious mind, even by shunya. You must work very gradually with this intoxication business. Rome wasn't built in a day, you know. Now, obviously, when I prepared that charas for him, I added a mantra to it. Otherwise, do you think the charas would have sent him into shunya? If that was so, so all the charas addicts in the world would be enlightened by now. One thing I always make sure to do is to take the antidote for whatever intoxicant I use. Ayurveda, our ancient Indian medical science, has provided us with methods to limit or eliminate the side effects on the body which these intoxicants cause, so that you can get only the intoxication and none of the evil repercussions on your body, or almost none anyway.
So everything has a frequency, right? And if you can find the opposite frequency, you can neutralize the effect. That is how an antidote actually works. So in Ayurveda, it's a very, very advanced science. They actually know. The problem today is of getting a person who actually knows how to make the Ayurvedic medicine. Most of the medicines we get as Ayurved now are not, the plants are not plucked in the proper way. They are not matured in the proper way. It is all machine formed rather than, while the mantra is being chanted, the churning of the medicine is made. So all those factors, the mantra associated with making a medicine, that is gone out of the window in the normal Ayurvedic medicines that we get off the shelf today. Only the chemical properties are there. That's why it is not as effective as the medication that used to be used previously by the Vaidyas, who used to make the medicine themselves.
Even with all these precautions, however, your body will deteriorate when you take intoxicants because your mind becomes partially free of the constraints of the body. That is the whole purpose of becoming intoxicated. Your mind works so fast that your body can't keep up with it, and it becomes flaccid, loose. And the less the mind self identifies with the body, the better for your sadhana, but the worse for your body. Your physical health will way to improved mental health. Or at the very least, you will remain healthy, but you will lose weight and fitness because you are sitting all day long without exercise or food. But then you don't care two hoots for your body because you find your mental play much more satisfactory.
So it's a balance between mental aspirations and physical aspirations.
Of course, it is very good to possess a body when you take intoxicants. It acts as something like a sheet anchor when you want to retain your awareness. When you are ethereal, you have nothing to hold on to, and other ethereal beings can play havoc with you if they catch you unaware. The possibilities are really frightening. But when you become really firm in your subtle body, there is nothing to fear.
So again, it's a matter of what is your resilience, even in that subtle environment. What is your strength? How much you can hold yourself there in that state of consciousness. That's what becomes important.
Until then, though, you need to have a strong, healthy body to withstand everything you will be going through. Don't get me wrong, I was a wrestler myself, and I appreciate the benefits of a good physique. And this is another reason I discourage people from taking intoxicants. You have to be very healthy first and have done a lot of physical and mental cultivation before you can afford to get involved in this intoxicant business. Otherwise, you'll just make yourself toxic. And remember, the brain is a chemical matter, and even toxin produces a certain state of mind. So, if you're not intrinsically healthy, the intoxicant will not only make your mind soar into astral regions, but it will create new brain toxins which will overwhelm your mind with disturbing emotions, which will ruin your sadhana. So, it is usually better to leave such things alone.
Again,
Agoris
you
believe
have to you have to maintain control when you are using intoxicants. Otherwise, you will lose it.
Agoris believe in reducing sleep to the absolute minimum because during sleep there is a possibility that mind may slip out of your control. All your careful precautions during a waking will come to naught if you get caught up in a dream. Either you must suppress sleep absolutely or must learn to control your dreams. There exists a plant for this purpose. Make a paste of it and apply it nightly to the soles of your feet. If you do it for 30 nights or even 40 nights, Every night, you'll get the same dream. It is a type of intoxication. The toxins come from the plant are affecting the same brain cells each time in the same way. This is necessary for the sadhana or Swapneshwari goddess of dreams. Once you get Siddhi of Swapneshwari, you can control your dreams or stop dreaming altogether. You can also control the dreams of other people, which can be very useful. Once, one of my friends had taken a Gori Baba stick for some work. When I asked him for it, he refused to return it. I sent Swapneshwari to him. When she comes to someone, she comes in a dream. Her face can't be seen. She warned him to return the stick or face the consequences. He ignored the warning. This was repeated 3 or 4 nights in a row. Then Swapneshwari came to him and told him, "This is your last warning. If you don't return it, you're heading for big trouble." When he woke up in the morning, he found a handprint in blood on his pillow. He obstinately refused to return the stick even then. The next night, Swapneshwari came to him and said, "Now you have gone too far. Take your punishment." The next morning, he and everyone in his household woke up with high fevers, which would not go down. No medicine could cure them. He returned the stick, and then the fevers subsided. There are plenty of other uses of Swapneshwari, but anyway you look at it, wakefulness is better than sleep. Intoxicants can be extremely useful in sadhanas, or they can ruin your consciousness. It all depends on how you use them, and to use them correctly, you have to die first.
So it all depends on how you use them, and to use them correctly, you have to die first. This is not the physical death. This is the release of attachments. You need to let go of your attachments when you want to go into these sadhanas. If you are attached with stuff, it will bring you back here. And then that creates a conflict between soaring up and being down. So you need to die first. You need to let go of all your attachments. We can read.
To die while still alive. To die while still alive means to eliminate all involuntary stimulation of your senses. You cannot salivate when you see a nice roast. Do dead men feel hunger? You cannot become aroused, even mentally, when a stunning woman walks by. Can a dead man get an erection? And remember, once you get involved in this, there is no limit to the amount of testing which will be performed on you. You will be tested to your limit.
So whenever we are going into these spiritual aspirations, we are always tested. Even in shamanism, they say that the spirits will test you. They will give you tests. They'll tell you to do stuff. You'll get into trouble, and then you have to work your way out of that trouble. So the testing is very, very important part of the entire spiritual growth.
To die while still alive means you must melt your bones. Why are some spirits depicted as skeletons? Because when the body dies and decomposes, the bones still remain for them to self identify with. To melt your bones means to lose the ability to perform any action with your own individual will, as opposed to the cosmic or divine will of nature. Do you remember the story of Sajal Shah? The Aghori who was brought to Sajal Shah's home had to be carried in a basket. He had so thoroughly given up action on his own that he was, in effect, boneless. They say that three creatures have no bones: the earthworm, the madman, and the god intoxicated man. To be an Agori, you must become just like an earthworm, completely boneless, so that you can be tied in knots and still not suffer. When a cyclone comes through, trees are uprooted, but the grass bends down and escapes. To die while still alive means to dry up, to become desiccated. Dry herbs are usually more useful than the fresh ones. They gain in potency as they dry. It is the same with an Agori. He or she dries up and loses all the juices which are necessary to maintain life. Physically, it means your digestive juices dry up, your reproductive fluids diminish, your skin may be even become harder and wrinkled, especially if you live in a smashan for months at a time.
So basically, again, detachment. Okay, detaching from everything.
But the mental effects are more important. Remember, the entire world is a smashan for an Agori. Everyone is born with their death fixed, which means to an Agori that they are all dead already. They are all already skeletons. The juices which must be dried up are all the juicy thoughts which keep you bound down to the world by perpetually producing desires. If you can dry these up mentally, you can do whatever you please physically. If you can't, you will have to observe some preliminary discipline and restrictions. But only when these juices of desire have dried up can the real juice of life, the Amrit, nectar of immortality, be obtained.
So again, reducing your desires, even thoughts of your desires. So releasing attachment at the physical as well as the mental and the emotional level.
Nikitya, I haven't really understood the boneless thing
So
that they spoke about.
so what he's saying today, your bone is the most permanent part of your body system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, even if you die, the skeleton always remains. When people are buried, the flesh gets eaten away, but the bone remains.
Yeah,
Even when you cremate someone, the bones still remain.
yeah.
So the metaphor here is that you stop identifying so much with the body that even your bones melt away.
No, but how can you get tied? I mean, how can you can get tied up in knots? I mean, the bone is not really melting away, right?
No, no, it really melts away. Na? He gave that example. Na? The Agori who was brought to Saigal Sa's home had to be carried on a basket. He
Yeah,
had
yeah.
so thoroughly given up action on his own that in effect he was boneless. So he had totally detached from all action, from all emotion, from all mental attachment. So there was no action left in him.
Does that mean it's literally soft and things like
I
that?
I I cannot vouch for this because I have no experience in this. It could also be boneless to the extent that you do not take any decisions anymore. बोलते हैं ना have a spine. Where is your spine, right? So spine is the main bone. So a person who cannot make any decision is spineless. So basically, the person who is becoming a true Agori stops taking any decision at all and allows the universe to do whatever it wants to do. But then that's a very high level of evolvement, right? You've totally evolved into that. You've identified with everything, and then you become boneless. I think
So,
that's what this means over here.
divine puppet, you mean?
Yeah. So divine puppet, exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I
Thank you.
don't know whether ये melting होता है कि नहीं. I'll have to ask
Hmm.
some people. Let me see.
Hmm. Okay.
We have this
Thank
question. Let's see. We'll get an answer somewhere or the other.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bhaiya, actually, it could be also because he's not eating or anything, so calcium would get
No, no,
removed.
but this is more mentioned in a spiritual sense of the word. It is
Okay,
not meant in the materialistic or the physical sense of the
okay, okay.
word.
Should we stop here?
No, no, finish this chapter.
To die while still alive means to extinguish all thoughts of dualities. The universal soul is single, not dual. So you must eliminate all perceptions of duality, desirable and non desirable,
So again,
pleasant and painful, interesting and boring, and so on. Does a corpse care about anything? No, not a thing. And you must become a corpse. In the eyes of the world, you want to succeed at Aghora.
So again, he comes back to this point, right? Extinguishing duality. There is no desire and no non-desire also. So you are there, but you're not there. You have a desire, you don't have a desire. Everything is existing together. That is when you're melting your bones also. You don't have any bones in your body system. I think this last paragraph explains it well. It's a transition from duality to total non-duality. You become one. It becomes whole at the end of the day. Okay, anyone, anything?
But like I want to ask a question.
Hmm.
Now, suppose one gives up like any action,
Hmm.
so uh, he or she is being guided only by the universe.
Hmm.
So anyone can use or misuse him or her.
Possibly, possibly. But
And
then when you have such drid vishwas, then
mhm,
things synchronicity also starts happening. So a lot depends on the state of consciousness with which you are doing it.
okay.
The way that we look at non-doing is very different from the non-doing that is being talked about over here.
Mm-hmm.
You will not lift your finger to do anything. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-hmm.
to go to the toilet, not to eat, not to sleep. You will allow. You will be in total allowance. So your ego will be totally out of the window.
But that way, though, he will die.
How do the birds die?
No,
How
but
do the
if he
trees
doesn't
grow?
eat, if he doesn't eat, then he will die.
You can survive on air. There are so many people who live
Okay.
on air. So
Okay.
that's why
Huh.
he says, na, that ultimately what is the position? That the Agori will eat less and less and less.
Okay.
So ultimately, even eating is a desire.
Yes. Yes.
You
It
have to
sure is.
transcend that desire also.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Bhaiya,
Renuji?
Bhaiya, hearing all this, that
Yeah.
means there must be hardly anyone who's an Agori. So they can't, I
No,
mean,
1 second. You are now tomorrow you'll say that hardly anyone can live in ice. There are no Eskimos, right? Because
no,
Eskimos will only eat
Eskimos,
fish.
but
And because it's in your conception, you're looking at it, right? But then, I mean, there are people who you don't know what they are doing also. So it's not in your conception, you can say. But the fact that these people have been written about means that there is someone there, na? नहीं तो ऐसे ही
but
कैसे बोल देते?
right, but Bhaiya, the book started with him being a behaving normally, but being an Agori, no?
Hmm.
But how can anyone who's done all this become anywhere near normal and lead a normal life?
Why you can allow things to happen around you? That's what we are constantly talking in awareness instead of doing, going to effortless doing. Allow it to happen rather than forcing it to happen. You are in your state of equanimity and you're all right with whatever is happening. Because we have desire, we want things to go our way, that we create our problems. Think about it. Whenever there's a problem, who's the factor which is always there? Who's the factor? You are the factor who's always there, right?
Right, Bhaiya.
Most of the things which just happen and happen beautifully, you will find that you really did not make an effort for it to happen. Stuff which happens beautifully, the real moments that you remember in your life, which you were taken into an altered state, which became an and you remember those moments. Did you make them happen? Or they
No,
happened?
it happened.
Happened.
So then,
No, but Bhaiya, going through all what we are reading, I mean, it's not possible for someone who
it is
to
not
be
possible in your conception.
okay,
Is
okay.
your conception the end all and for all of everything?
No, no,
Or
no.
there is more beyond that?
Okay,
We are
okay.
operating very small, right? There is so much more. What the electromagnetic spectrum is like that, right? We are observing only so much. Now, does that mean that this does not exist? So you are looking at it with blinkers in your eyes. Don't do that. What are we attempting to do here? We are attempting to remove the blinkers in eyes, that this is possible. And that's all the stuff that we are talking about in awareness. So many modalities you all have seen. It was not there in your conception. Did that mean it did not exist? Of course it existed. That's why it's coming in front of you, no?
By
Yes,
the time
Shaji.
you accept something in the book that, okay, this could happen, it goes even further. Then it goes further. I mean, it's taking a
So
lot to
you're
accept.
being taken out of your comfort zone
Too
into the
much,
unknown, right? And
too
that's the
much.
game that we are playing.
Really, this book
Yes,
is really
Ushaji.
doing that. Really doing that.
Ushaji, you were saying something.
Thank you, Bhaiya.
See, we go through so many lifetimes to achieve this space.
Correct.
We are
Absolutely.
learning about it much earlier than we are probably ready for it.
No. I cannot say that.
It's all part of the readying.
The fact that we are sitting together, Ushaji, and doing this means that we are ready.
So it's part of the readying process to become aware.
Absolutely. If we were not ready, why would we be reading it, right? Then you won't be here. There are 1,000 or 1,200 people in all the virtual groups, okay? Just now there are only 38 people over here. So why aren't the rest here? You get what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Only Shiva is the true Aghori, it is said, you know.
What?
Shiva.
Can you
Lord
please switch on your video?
Yeah, Ambika, you have to switch on your video if you want to talk. And you also need to raise your hand. There are
Okay.
people who've raised their hand, okay? So let's
Okay.
have a little bit of decorum. Yes,
Okay.
Manjula Bhabhi?
I have a question भैया अघोरी हम सिर्फ मेल अघोरी देखे फीमेल अघोरीज भी होती हैं क्या
नहीं फीमेल तो होते ही हैं भैरवी बोलते हैं ना
अच्छा
they
जैसे
the male and the female Agoris, they actually work with each other. So in Tantra, the female helps the male and the male helps the female. And when the merger takes place, that's when you have total evolution. You have to work with both the forces. Definitely. Yes, Jyoti?
I just want to share one thing. रेणु जी जो बोल रहे थे ऐसा होता है कोई तो हम लोग के जो गुरु थे he supposed like that only. वो जब ड्रिंक स्टार्ट करते थे 7 बजे शाम से लेके 3:30 तक नॉन स्टॉप एंड it was as normal as we are. शायद अपन एक बार डगमगा जाएंगे and he's very normal.
Correct.
When he was die वो सुबह 4 बजे एक्सपायर हुए रात को 9 बजे उनको लेके गए 10 बजे शायद लिफ्ट में ही वाज 6 फीट हाइट के थे और पूरा फोल्ड करके ले गए उनको पूरा फोल्ड हो गया एकदम लिफ्ट में तो मन के इज लाइक दैट ओनली
बोनलेस
या
ग्रेट
वही ये जो बुक पढ़ रहे हैं वो मुझे लग रहा है वो एकदम उनके बारे में पढ़ रहे हैं सारा
ठीक बात
each and everything is there
wonderful चलिए पूनम you have a question
not a question but I saw this movie The Queen's Gambit
yeah
and they showed this girl as an orphan who's been sent to the children's home and they actually are drugging the children there. They give them a combination of drugs to keep them under control, maybe keep them calm and easy to control.
Yeah.
But then she finds out that someone tells her there that you should save one of these for having later, but pretend like you're having everything, but save this one. She starts doing that. That is such a strong intoxicant that and her powers get so magnified that she's able to play chess. She learned chess from the janitor in the school. And then she's able to, on the ceiling, when everybody's sleeping, she's able to play the pawns on the ceiling and the different permutations, combinations, and she becomes a master chess champion later on.
Yeah. So that's a good example of how you can use intoxicants to sharpen your mind. That movie is a nice movie. I think everyone can see that movie.
Queen's Gambit.
It's also showing you how you go into an altered state and actually use that altered state of consciousness. So this girl, she used it to play chess. Yes, Ambika, you had something to say?
Just Bhaiya, I was saying ki, like Shiva, only Shiva is the true Aghori that I have read.
No. Shivji was the first Agori.
Okay.
And everyone aspires to become Shiva. Yeah, he's the epitome of Agoriism, you could say. But it doesn't mean that he's the only Agori.
Okay.
To a certain extent, because we are reading, even we are Agoris, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else, anything before we shut down?
Bhaiya, where's this Queen's Gambit?
Queen's Gambit is a movie. You can see it.
No, I know. But does it...
it is you go and see Queen's Gambit. It's a new movie. It's either in Netflix or in Amazon Prime.
Amazon.
Yeah.
It must be Amazon.
Yeah. Okay. So everyone will see you for meditation at 3:45.
Queen's Gambit is on
Thank
Netflix.
you.
Thank you, Ram Ram. Thank you,
Yes.
Ram Ram.
Annalisa is saying it's in Netflix.
It's on
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Ram Ram.
Thank